How do you find stories that you don't even know exist? This is a riddle that we've dedicated ourselves to for, I guess, about the past 9, 10 years. And we've come up with kind of a simple solution. We talk to strangers. And I mean, really talk to strangers all day, every day.
It's sort of a counterintuitive way to live life, right? Most of us have been socially programmed to do the exact opposite, in fact. But what we've come to learn is if you can find it in yourself to break that rule, that don't talk to strangers rule, your average day is going to get a lot more interesting.
Little backstory on how we wound our way down this road. I'm a public radio journalist. A couple of years ago, this idea started percolating in my head for an unusual kind of a documentary. I thought, what if you could go to a city block in Baltimore and meet and interview everyone on that block about life? What would that sound like? What would you learn? And that's when I called my friend Wendel here, and his music, by the way, is awesome. And I said, can I borrow some of your instrumental tracks to lay under this weird project I want to try?
And that's when I said, actually, Aaron, tell me more about this weird project of yours. And he did. And I said, well, what if instead of using my old tracks, I actually offered to produce a score, an original score for this thing that incorporates the sounds of the actual block into an original musical composition.
Right. Which, what do you say to an offer like that? You say, yes, thank you. That would be incredible. So we teamed up, we picked a block, the 3300 block of Greenmount Avenue, and we got to work. We made it our mission to meet and get to know and interview everybody on the block about life. And Wendell put it to music, and it was fascinating.
I'm Mr. Dorsey at Dre's Boutique.
Teresa Marable, we're at No Limit Communications.
Zishan Kazmi, King's Fried Chicken.
你好，欢迎大家来到五月花苑仓。
Dimitri, we're at Stereo and Jewelry Exchange right now.
Michael D. Thornton, Miller's Financial.
Officer Charles Faulkner, Sector 2.
Thai restaurant is our name.
Krishan Hapta Michael. Address is Mama Grocery Store.
My name is LaShawn Glasgow.
My name is Tiffany Thomas, and we're at Sheer Intensity Hair Salon.
3338 Greenmount Avenue.
3349.
3330. 3310.
I do my business right here on Greenmount 33rd.
When we put this program on the radio, I remember listeners really responded to it. It just lit something up inside them. And, the people on the block, they really responded to it too. I mean, if you think about it, how well do you know your own neighbors on your own block? And what if all of a sudden you have this window into all of their lives?
And that's kind of when we realized we might be onto something here. If you think about the entire city as a mosaic, each city block is a tile in that mosaic, right? But then you zoom in and you realize
Each block is actually a mosaic in itself.
and the tiles in that mosaic,
Individual human beings.
Each one with a story to tell.
and while any one of those stories is meaningful in its own right, if you put them together,
Like tiles in a mosaic.
They can start to mean something more.
here's another analogy. Each person on a block is like a musical instrument.
Every voice has its own tone and timbre.
Each story has its own melody line.
You put them together and you get something like an orchestra.
Playing a symphony.
Symphony.
And by the way, this idea isn't rocket science. This is a simple, repeatable formula. So we thought, what if we tried this on another block? And so we did. And then we did it again and again and again. And that's how this quirky idea, this idea of one block, everybody's story, 9 years and 80 plus episodes later has basically become our life's work.
Now, when you listen to these episodes of Out of the Blocks, one thing you don't hear a lot of is us. You hear the people on the block in their own words, on their own terms, in their own spaces. As producers, we tend to make ourselves relatively invisible in the final edits of these productions. We like it that way, but we're going to go out on a limb today. We're going to pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about the effect this work has had on us personally as human beings.
It's an interesting mixture of joy and fear that flows through you when you embark on this kind of a journalistic leap of faith. I mean, because we're all inherently skeptical creatures, right? We humans, and who really wants someone showing up on your doorstep asking you to share your entire life story?
And it is a radical agenda, this idea of having no agenda. It's kind of the opposite of traditional reporting, inviting people to talk about what they want to talk about instead of what you want to talk about. And when you try to explain this particular agenda to people, you kind of have to be ready for some serious side eye. It's totally understandable. We get mistaken for salesmen or missionaries or undercover cops all the time.
But the thing is, once a person realizes that you really are just there with nothing but your fundamental human curiosity and a microphone, there's really no end to what people are willing and able to and eager to share about their lives. Conversations are like therapy. They are therapy for both parties involved. And there's really nothing like the power of someone else's personal story to put your own life in perspective.
When we met Clayton Williams on the 2100 block of Edmondson Avenue in West Baltimore, we learned, I guess you could say, a lesson about survival. Clayton had burns on his face from a fire in an abandoned row house where he'd been squatting. When we met him, Clayton was living in an abandoned van in the parking lot of an auto shop where he was working as the night watchman.
I'm 65 now, so I've been surviving for a mighty, mighty long time.
We learned a lesson about gratitude when we met Spiro Kranis. He's a Greek immigrant who works as a painter. He started his mornings at the Greek Village Bakery on the 4700 block of Eastern Avenue, and he broke into tears when he talked about his wife.
I met, girl first day here, I guess, in Baltimore. And we're married now for 30 years.
Can I ask what's making you feel emotional right now?
I don't know, just all these years, stay with the same woman.
You're crying tears of happiness right now.
Yeah.
We learned a lesson about resiliency when we met Tamikia Spellman. Tamikia ran a hair salon on the 4700 block of Liberty Heights Avenue in Northwest Baltimore. She was physically abused by her dad when she was a kid. But now that she's a parent, she's determined to give her own children a different experience.
I didn't have a childhood. My childhood was horrible, very horrible. So I want my children to get the best out of theirs. The fact that I can sit here, talk to you, and smile after everything that's happened to me, the fact that I can do that, that's only God.
The more people we've met and the more stories we've heard over the years, there's an idea that's cropped up between us that's become kind of a North Star guiding principle in our lives. And that's the idea of treating everyone you meet as your teacher for the day.
Right. Treat everyone you meet as your teacher for the day, and you're going to really open yourself up to a whole new definition of education. Sometimes people will drop these profound pearls of wisdom on you when you least expect it. And these pearls of wisdom, they're not just words of wisdom, they're life lessons learned the hard way, regrets, hopes, wishes, failures, and triumphs.
In Northwest Baltimore, Yusuf Ali taught us a lesson about working with limited options. He had just gotten out of jail for dealing narcotics. He had court fees to pay, but he also couldn't get a job with his criminal record.
And now you got to go back out here and sell drugs because you can't get a job fast enough. The drug trade is just not my only hustle. Man, you tell me cut your grass and for $50, I'm gonna cut it. You tell me dig a hole for $100, I'm gonna dig that hole. You know what I mean? I don't care what you're using the hole for. I'm gonna dig it. You know what I mean? You be ready to throw a body in there, how big you want it. I'm gonna dig it for you. So it never stops.
We learned a lesson about principles when we met Khurshid Zaman Abbasi. Back in his home country of Kashmir, he worked as an independent political journalist, even while the Pakistani government would beat him and kidnap his coworkers. Finally, he had to flee his country, and today he runs a carry-out sub shop making sandwiches in West Baltimore.
I've been here now 18 years. I've been granted asylum. I'm a citizen of the United States now, and I feel free here. It's overstuffed with the meats and shrimp.
Do you ever regret the decision that you made to write those bold journalistic pieces that caused this path to happen for you?
No, sir, never. I'm the person who stick to my opinion always. No regret at all. Not at all.
We learn lessons not just from what people say, but also from how they say it. There are life lessons to be found just in tones of bitterness and resignation, in tones of gratitude and pride. If you think about it, the human voice has been our teacher for much longer than the printed word, for as long as we've been human, really. We're all hardwired to learn from the voice in the most elemental ways.
This is Bumi Owojigbe. She's from Nigeria. It's always been her dream to have her own pharmacy. And finally, she made it happen on the 2100 block of East Monument Street.
Starting this pharmacy is a big step for me. And I'm grateful to God. Ba, 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 ba. It's a Christian song. It's saying Baba Eshewo Baba, just saying thank you, Father. Thank you, my Father. Thank you, my Father. Baba 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 Eshewo Baba Eshewo Baba Mo wa dúpẹ́ Baba.
We're going to play you one more clip now from a story a woman shared with us in South Baltimore a few years back. It's a story that always stuck with us, haunted us really, because it encapsulates everything that's beautiful and everything that's also tragic about love all at once. This was a woman whose boyfriend had left her out of the blue one day. And after he left, she found a bottle she didn't recognize in her medicine cabinet. It turned out to be medication for HIV. And he hadn't told her. But her reaction when she found out?
I love him. I mean, if I do got it, there's nothing I can do about it. But I don't want that man to die knowing that I didn't help him. I just really don't want him to die. That's it. He'll be back. I know he'll be back. So I'm just gonna let it go at that.
There are the stories you don't know existed, and then there are the stories you just can't imagine. When you treat every voice you encounter as your teacher in that moment, you really can fundamentally redefine for yourself what it means to be educated.
The truth is, though, all of us are socially programmed, for better or worse, to keep each other at a distance. And for the past year with the pandemic, we've literally all had to keep each other at a distance. We all know what it feels like, that pain of not being able to see friends and loved ones.
Yeah. But there is, I think, another social casualty of this pandemic that may not be as obvious. And that casualty is the sum total of every chance encounter with a stranger that didn't happen. Wendel and I, we felt the sting of that loss every day. It basically has put our life's work into a deep freeze for the last year.
And maybe you felt it too in your own way. I'll bet at some moment in your life you felt that same exhilaration of actually connecting with a stranger in a serendipitous moment. It's a very simple human experience, but a profound one. And it can only happen when we are free to roam haphazardly into shared space with each other.
So when you get your vaccine, eventually, when you get off Zoom and get back to a life that resembles something like what we remember from the before times, go out, hug your family, go to brunch with your long neglected friends, but also maybe entertain the idea of a new social practice.
Open your mind and your heart to the idea of connecting with the strangers around you in some sort of substantive way. Can it be awkward? Yes. Does it mean going out on a limb? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Yes. When we can manage to outweigh our own shyness and the comfort of our isolation with our fundamental human curiosity and empathy and desire to commune with the people around us, we can achieve a very simple and profound form of personal liberation.
So, as you prepare to emerge from your pandemic cocoon, maybe make it an opportunity to turn over a new leaf. I read a great line from the New York Times writer Timothy Egan recently. He said, "Life is never so sweet as in the pivot out of despair." And that's where we are right now. I think this moment is also a moment for us to come out of that cocoon with a renewed openness to the people around us, friends and strangers alike. Thank you.
Thank you.